Rayner from the Telegraph. Prime Minister and Sir Patrick, last week, Sir Patrick in particular was talking about herd immunity. We've heard today of a case in Japan where somebody has reportedly tested positive twice, having had it once, they've now got it again. Does that mean that herd immunity is now completely out of the window? Chris Whitty was saying just now, I think, that if you test people and they have had the disease, that means they can't get it again and they can go back to work. Are you absolutely sure about that in the light of what we've heard today from Japan?
Do you want to answer the second one? So the first thing, just to reiterate, the objectives, and they've always been the objectives, is to make absolutely sure we flatten this curve, keep it below NHS capacity limits. That's the primary aim, and of course, to make sure that we save lives and protect the vulnerable. That's what we need to focus on. In any infectious disease, there are cases where people can catch something again. They're rare. There's nothing to suggest that this is a common occurrence in this disease, but we are learning as we go along. But at the moment, there is nothing particular to suggest that, and we already know that there are some people who've had what are called neutralising antibodies that have actually stopped it, so that it looks like a normal response to an infection, and there will be occasions, very rare, where somebody might get it more than once, as in any disease, any infectious disease.
Should I just add to that, Prime Minister? I mean, even in diseases which do not have long-lasting immunity, there's usually a short period of immunity, and that's enough for a season and an epidemic in the initial phases. So I think it's important to differentiate between that and long-lived immunity. Of course, if people don't induce very long-lived immunity, that makes the idea of a vaccine less certain. So I think we need to be aware of that, and we'll be watching this very carefully. I think the final thing is, I haven't seen the details of this report. If people have got immunosuppression or various other things, they can make this more likely. But it's an involved area.
And it's always worth stressing what I think we've said continuously, which is our objective, our overriding objective in all cases is to reduce suffering, to minimise the incidence of this disease and to save life. That's the absolute priority.
Can I just make one other point, which is right the way from the beginning, we described four things, one of which was research. And research is unbelievably important in this. And the UK is outstanding at clinical science and the biological sciences that underpin this. And so the research in the UK is going to be an important part of tackling this and part of an important international effort to make sure that we get on top of this.
Thanks. Tom Newton-Dunn.
Thank you, Prime Minister. First of all, can you give the nation any form of indication how long this ban on social contact will last to prepare them? Should they prepare for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, the whole year? And secondly, in terms of the effect of the economy, obviously no blame intended, but clearly this has gone far further than the Chancellor might have thought last week, even when he was delivering his budget, which was predestined on 1.1% growth this year. Do you accept now the economy is not going to grow by 1.1% and the Chancellor is going to have to spend an awful lot more public money propping up businesses?
Look, just on the timing, I think I might defer to the experts on either side of it. But just on where we are with the economy, look, it's perfectly obvious. Just from the G7 conversation I was having today, everybody sees that this is going to be potentially a severe blow for the economy. Everybody can see the risks that this situation poses, the risk to demand, the risks to supply. But if we get it right, and if we get the right response, and if we work together, then we can ensure that it is a short-term problem, because the fundamentals of the UK economy are very strong. This is unlike 2008. There isn't a systemic problem within the economy. If we can get the disease under control in the way that we're describing, if we can flatten that peak and it starts eventually to decline and tails off across the world, then there's absolutely no reason why economies worldwide should not come roaring back. So it's a very, very different category of difficulty from 2008. I think people understand that. But on timing, Chris.
I mean, we stressed right from the beginning this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint, and I stressed at the beginning of the points I made that sustainability is absolutely critical here. This is not a situation where a couple of weeks and this virus is on the way. Absolutely not. People should be thinking of a minimum of weeks to months, and depending how it goes, it may be longer. So I think it is really important people realise they're in for the long haul on this, but this is really important. If we're to defend the ability of the NHS to treat people, if we're to actually minimise the mortality, we've got to see this as a long game.
Victoria McDonald, Channel 4.
Can I ask, just a little while ago we were told, last week indeed, that it was 7 days isolation. Was it that the science moved so much or that you made a mistake on that? And also, could you tell me about the advice on pregnant women? Because there have been reports, of course, of babies at the weekend being born and then testing positive, but there have been no reports of in utero transmission.
Shall I take the second one and Patrick take the first? Yes. In terms of pregnancy, there are reports of, actually in the global literature at this point in time, one person who became severely ill, but we're very, very early in what we know on this. The Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, which is the professional body, reviewed the evidence. It's on their website, and it was before this case was reported, and it makes clear that in the very small number of pregnant women who delivered at or shortly around the time they had this, there were absolutely no complications. But there are two buts to this. For many infectious diseases, there is a small but appreciable additional risk, and we will not know that until a lot more women have had children